Welcome to Sew Very Easy. My name is Laura, and we have been following along with a free block of the month from Quilting Confections. And today we are on block number 17. Block number 17 is this great pinwheel. We're going to have that same beautiful white background, and this time we have 4 fun colors to make that pinwheel. We will need to start with 4 blocks, and they're going to be at 5.5 inches. And all of the blocks are going to be cut the same way. We just need to cut all of those blocks in half once. For the background fabric, we're going to need 4 long strips, 2 inches by 7 inches, and 1 8.5 inch square. We're going to cut that apart twice, so we have 4 triangles. And this is all the fabric we're going to need for that big, beautiful 12.5 inch block. And it will be really easy if we cut all the pieces first and then lay it out how the block is going to look. The block has 4 corners, and the opposite corners are going to be the same. We can lay this block out in its entirety, or we can just lay it out in the half. And that will give us a good idea on how the colors are going to go together. Each side is the same, it's just turned. So let's work on one side. A block is green, so we're going to put those 2 green triangles together. We will need those 2 inch by 7 inch strips going towards the side of it. And that's going to be that piece right there. The next is this triangle made with 2 triangles. So it's going to be the B color plus a background fabric. The blocks are going to be sewn together on the diagonal. So those 2 triangles will only go together in one way. No matter how we turn that white block, it's only going to fit one way. Both the blocks are made the same way, it's just a different color variation. So let's lay out the second side. We have that C color that's going to come right beside with that long white strip at the top. And it is 2 inches by 7 inches. And since we only have 2 pieces left, we know those are going to be next. We have that blue D and the white background. So this is half the block. Both sides are the same. By laying that half out first, it's going to give us an opportunity if we want to switch the fabrics. Depending on your fabric, you might want to change it. Let's switch those 2 bottom colors. Each of those triangles are the same size, so we can switch them any way we want. From here, we're going to be able to sew the units together. We will have 2 blocks that look like this and 2 blocks that look like this. So the first thing we need to do is sew those long ends onto the ends of the triangle. Match that fabric so it's right side together. And the edges will be straight. We will have some peeking out on the end, and that's exactly what we want. So we can stitch that together 1/4 inch and come right off to the edge of the fabric. We'll be able to do that the same with this block. It's the same, it just looks different because it's going in a different direction. We can take that, and when we turn it, we can see that block is going to be treated the same way. So let's stack those together and bring those to the machine. And sew 1/4 inch, starting at the bottom and coming right up off the edge. When we stitch the long rectangles onto the triangles, we will have this long piece sticking out. I do like to press those seams open and flat. Once those seams are pressed, we're going to be able to take this piece and turn it into a larger triangle. Following that one line, we're going to be able to continue cutting that triangle right up to the end. We will be able to discard that little piece, but now we've turned that little triangle into a large triangle. And we need to do that to all 4 pieces. We can leave these pieces and sew the next 2 together. We can pick up one corner and just slide it right on top of the other corner. The whites are always going to be in the same direction. We will need to sew those seams together along this edge. Flip those seams so they're right sides matching, and match up the 2 edges and stitch down. When you do that, you're going to notice that the white triangle is a little bit bigger, and that's fine. We just need to match the two straight edges, and the rest is going to be trimmed down. We can also press these seams in any direction that we want, but in this case, I do like to press them open and flat. We get to put these together, and this is a great time to lay them back out the way they were originally at. From here, I'm just going to be able to sew these two triangles together. We're going to be able to trim them down, so we want to have a seam line up. We want the center seam to line up with one of the points. So as this gets folded over, we're going to keep this edge straight, and this top point is going to line up with this seam. And that will be for both of them. Go right up into that seam. So the point and the seam are matching. We're going to be able to trim off this edge so we won't have to worry about the extra fabric. By having these seams opened up, it makes it very easy to go over. When we open this up, we'll see none of the seams match, but we get to square this up to a 6.5-inch square. And we can do this before we press it open. To square this block up to a 6.5-inch square, we can use that Eleanor Burns Quilt in a Day 6.5-inch square up ruler. And it goes right to that 6.5-inch mark. So that 6.5-inch line is the line we're going to be looking for. It will be easier if you trim this so that the two triangles are facing up. That center line on the ruler is going to follow the center of that seam. The 6.5-inch line is going to go on the seam. So we can see that 1/4 inch seam allowance, and that line is going to come right up to the top. We'll be able to take that rotary cutter and cut off the extra. And be sure to cut off the dog ears while you're there. With the dog ears trimmed off and that extra, that center seam has made sure that that point is going to be perfect on the other side. And when we open it, we have that lovely point on one side. From here, you can choose which direction to press all of the blocks in. They're all going to be squared up the same way, and we're going to sew them together. So we need all of the seams going in the same direction. You can go to one side, or you can go to the other. We now have 2 blocks in each pile that are identical. This long 2.5 by 7-inch piece are outside pieces. So these will be the inside. And that is half the block. And we can take that, and that's going to continue that block. So both sides are the same. So we can take both of those and sew them together using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And by having that last seam going all in the same direction, that corner is going to nestle up. So it'll be very easy to match that point. When we turn it over, we're going to be able to continue the pressing depending on the order that you did. I pressed towards the 2 triangles, so I'm going to continue that. If you press towards the longer piece, you'll press the seam going in that direction. Now, because both these seams were pressed in the same direction, when they go together, they're going to be opposing. So we're going to be able to match them up, and those seams are going to go in a circle. Nestle up those seams and stitch that 1/4 inch. When that last row is stitched, we're going to have a finished block. I would recommend to continue pressing those seams, all going in the same direction. So you'll have that last seam going in one direction and in another. You'll be able to just pull apart a little bit of the seams right in the center, and that's going to make a little swirl and lie flat. If you've been following along, you know I've been doing a block in a second variation. Where the light background has been, I have replaced it with a dark fabric, and I've been using up my scraps as I go along. So I still end up with my 2 blocks. So I'm going to be able to just put these together. But before I do that, there is one way we can switch these up. The block already looks quite different because where the white is, we do now have the dark. But because these are all 6.5 inches, we can switch them. So instead of having the points come into the center, let's pull them out to the side. So these long skinny strips are now going to come inside. It still gives us that pinwheel shape, but definitely a different pinwheel. By changing the dark for the light and switching them up, we've made an entire different block. However, it's the same pattern. I'm going to sew these together just like the original block. Block 17 is now done. This is a fun block to make because we can still change it in different ways. The pattern's not going to change, it's the colors. We could make this pinwheel all one color, or we can have them go in two colors. This is the 4-color variation. We could also make each one of these wheel points a different color, so we'd have 8 different colors. And the only seam we need to match up is that center one. If you'd like to follow along, I'll put a link in the description so you can download the first 17 blocks, because we only have 3 blocks left to go. And thank you for joining me today on Sew Very Easy. Feel free to subscribe, and as always, come on back. Let's see what we're sewing next time in the sewing room. Bye for now.